Good morning, konnichiwa, bonjour, guten tag, wherever you are around the world. Many of us are here in California, and we're going to be talking about a very important topic for traders and exporters and importers, and that is building resilience for the California ports and how important it is given, first of all, how trade is continuing to grow. It grew over 7% last year. It's been growing at about a 4% pace annually for 30 years. We can count on global trade typically to continue to increase, and that puts pressure on the logistics systems to be able to move product in and out of countries amidst all of the other things that are going on, including tariffs and uh, COVID and all the other things that are happening that can get in the way, fuel and fuel costs and a variety of other things. And yet, because trade is continuing, we rely on our ports as one of the key parts of the hub of being able to facilitate trade moving. And so today we have a couple different ports. This was the brainchild of David Harlow, who's the president and CEO of ITC Diligence. He's a member of Global Chamber. He's also on our Los Angeles advisory board. So we will have a conversation with two of the ports. We'll hear from David, who will facilitate the conversation. I'm here to introduce Dr. Sarita Jackson, who's also a member. She's an expert on trade. She's a doctor. She's a doctor of trade. And she is an interesting, to me at least, an interesting evolution of her career, starting in research and then expanding in a variety of ways to be able to help importers and exporters and traders generally to be more successful in their trade. She's now on the Southern California District Export Council, and besides being on our advisory board for Global Chamber in Southern California, she's also the chair, and she's been doing an amazing job in pulling together our activities and support and value for our members. Sarita, could you kick us off, and then we'll introduce David?
Well, thank you. It's nice to see everyone that's on the call. And as Doug mentioned, thank you so much for that beautiful introduction. I'm Dr. Sarita Jackson and excited to serve as chair of the Global Chamber Los Angeles Advisory Board. And what you are really seeing is just one component of the type of work that we do with these Globinars. And I'll let David talk. I don't want to steal his thunder about this, but just to give you a little bit of background, where we do a lot of events with the whole focus on providing information that companies, manufacturers, service providers, agricultural producers, but particularly your manufacturers, information that they can use, especially in today's international trade climate when it comes to import and export. And with what you're seeing here, this is one of the events that came out of the Import Export Committee of the Global Chamber Los Angeles. So David is leading the helm with this, but I would be remiss to not highlight Anita Rodal, who I see, who's on the call, who has also been instrumental with the Import-Export Committee, as well as Elizabeth Glenn. There are a few others, but they are here today, so I wanted to acknowledge them. And having said that, watch out for more information. If you're not already on our newsletter, make sure you're on the newsletter so that you can get the events, the upcoming events, because as Doug mentioned, this is a part of a series. Now, I will stop talking and turn it over to my good friend, colleague. We have worked on a number of projects together and in different organizations, in addition to Global Chamber Los Angeles. So I will turn this over to David Harlow.
Thank you very much, everybody. It's a pleasure. Special thank you to Dr. Sarita Jackson and Doug and Mila for all the support you give me and our committee so that we can put events on like this. And definitely, I was going to do the same thing, is a special thanks to our committee members. Elizabeth and Anita do an amazing job to contribute towards past events and these events as well. And so today is really the start of our series to talk about the different ports throughout California and how they contribute to our international trade industry. Our first part of that series is today, where we're focused on the Port of Long Beach and the Port Hueneme. Both of them offer very unique and vital parts of our industry on how we receive cargo and ship cargo for importing and exporting, and how it moves throughout the United States. And so today I'm going to go ahead and introduce Drew. Drew is with the Port Hueneme. Drew Rodriguez currently serves as the Business Development Senior Representative for the Port of Hueneme. Having joined the port team in 2017, Drew has served in multiple departments, including administration, community outreach, and public relations. In his current role, Drew supports business development opportunities, leveraging the Port of Hueneme unique business model and its assets, including the Foreign Trade Zone, number 205 designation. The Port Hueneme is one of the most productive and efficient commercial trade gateways for fresh produce and automobiles on the West Coast. Port Hueneme operations support regional businesses and local communities by bringing $2.8 billion in economic activity and creating nearly 25,000 trade-related jobs. And so without further ado, I'll hand it off to Drew to present his port to everyone.
Yes, thank you, David, and thank you, Doug, and the entire Global Chamber team for having a spotlight here, showcasing the value of having ports kind of showcase the ways that we are resilient hubs for not only the state, but the nation as a whole. So what I'm going to like to discuss today, for those of you who are unfamiliar with the Port of Hueneme, I'm going to do a little dance. I don't know if you could see me, but it's the letter Y, ni, me would be how you would pronounce our port. We are a Southern California gateway hub. We're going to talk a little bit about who we are, what we do, and how we do it, as well as a couple of examples that we think highlight some of the resiliency that we've built into our operational model here that has helped us grow volumes significantly, even during some of these myriad of black swan events we've seen in recent years. And so without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and introduce our governance structure. So the Port of Hueneme is legally under the state of California known as the Oxnard Harbor District. We are led by 5 locally elected harbor commissioners who must reside from the geopolitical boundary of the Oxnard Harbor District, which includes the city of Oxnard, the city of Port Hueneme, and the beach communities. So these 5 locally elected harbor commissioners oversee our CEO, import director, and executive team on driving our mission and vision. And believe it or not, the way our governance structure here is set up actually gives us a lot of resiliency in that the Oxnard Harbor District is its own government agency. So we are not a part of a municipal agency. We're not a part of the county agency. We are our own governance structure. And so our 5 commissioners here are solely focused on driving economic benefits for the local and regional communities via maritime trade and logistics. And so it really allows us to provide a unique service that's looking at our trade partners as a priority partner and customer of ours. So the Port of Hueneme, we are mostly large players in our produce and automobile trades. As you can see on the slides here, we're bringing in significant cargo value annually. We're the #1 West Coast banana port. Yes, that is a stat, and we're very proud of that. We have the 5th largest market share in the US for refrigerated cargo, which is very interesting when we discuss a little later on the footprint in which the port actually operates on. We're also the #5 US auto port. So again, overall in the top 10% of US ports for autos and fresh produce. And primarily, our market reach is what allows us to be so successful in supporting these commodities. We have access to 15 states and Canada, the LA city metropolitan areas right in our backyard, and overall, the market of California is one of the largest consumer markets, and we're here to serve that market both on the import side and as well as the trade lanes that connect us for our export partners. So who does the Port of Hueneme trade with? Well, on this slide, you'll see who our top trading partners are by two categories. By value, in which country is bringing the largest value of goods in, and then by volume, who's bringing kind of the most by weight coming in. And what's interesting is on the value slide here, you'll notice a lot of these countries, they represent the auto OEM brands. Think of your Hyundais, your Kias, think of your BMWs, your Jaguars, Land Rovers, Mini Coopers. And then on the volume side, you'll notice that the countries that drive a lot of that volume to Hueneme are a lot of the fresh produce growing regions of Latin America and Central America. And so I want to highlight here that our two major segments you're going to hear a lot about are our RoRo segment, which is all of our autos, high and heavy, and then our Latin America container business, which we are tapped into. And we'll talk a little bit more about the carriers that serve those markets. But these global partnerships are solidified more than just trade, but informal agreements. We have sister port agreements with ports all over the world, as well as this concept of a green corridor MOU, which is an agreement between ports and uh, global trade stakeholders in trying to find a ways to reduce emissions in transit between two ports or two countries. And so we're really proud of these relationships and these partnerships that we have across the world. They reinforce our strength as trade partners, and we look to continue to develop some of these formal partnerships with other trade lanes as we grow. Now, talking about the performance of the port, since 2012, we've seen close to 80% growth over the past decade at the port. And in the bottom there, you'll see kind of the commodity segments that drive that growth, the autos, high and heavy. Banana. Banana is its own line item. Again, we're the number one West Coast banana port. So it's a big driver of growth for us as well. In addition to fruit, general cargo, we do some small fish and liquid fertilizer and offshore oil as well. If we were to dive in a little bit more on the specifics within those commodities, our TEU or our container growth has also seen some significant growth over the last 5 years, almost 74% growth. And that's even factoring in some of the COVID impacts, which I will talk about shortly. But we actually thrived during COVID, and we'll talk a little bit about why. But as you see here, a lot of our inbound, outbound, and empty containers, one of our goals is to support the backhaul of our Latin American trade. So if there's any partners or interest in moving U.S. exports to Central South America, please reach out. We might have a market that you are currently serving that we can support with. On the other side of the coin, on the auto side of the business for the port, we've seen again significant growth, nearly 80% since 2008, primarily driven by imports. In 2025, we moved about 405,000 autos through the port of Hueneme. So again, you can really see the impact that the port of Hueneme has for our auto and fresh produce commodities that serve the U.S. market across the board. And what's really interesting is given all of that growth, the volumes, the significance, this is what our front gate looks like. Most of the time as you drive by, there's not much congestion, and we're not kidding. And a lot of the customers that call on Wainimi, this is one of the highlights that they enjoy: easy access, quick access to get their cargo from the port to the next leg of the supply chain. And really, what drives this congestion-free model is our business model, which I'm going to talk about. And it's really unique in its advantages and how it plays into our resiliency and strength. I'll explain now. So, in that yellow segment is the boundaries of the Oxnard Harbor District, or the Port of Hueneme. We have two main terminals. Our south terminal is annotated by the light green star, and that area primarily focuses our container fresh produce business, and our north terminal, which focuses on our auto, high and heavy railroad business. In blue, what you see, we share the harbor with the naval base Ventura County. And what's really interesting is we have a arrangement with the Navy base Ventura County for joint use purposes. And what that basically says is, when there is the opportunity to utilize that joint use terminal that's annotated with a blue star, the Port of Hueneme and the Navy can arrange to support commercial carriers on the naval terminal to discharge commercial cargo. And this arrangement has given us a lot of flexibility and a lot of resilience in being able to handle volume surges, which we saw during the pandemic. And so, while we heard very common at the time of the congestions across the United States and global ports, we were able to utilize our partnership with the Navy base to support some of these surge flexes. And it really did help drive cargo volumes through Hueneme during the congestion. And it was also able to help get essential goods into the market in the US. And so this is kind of one of the components of our business model. This is the Oxnard Harbor District, Port of Hueneme Terminal, but outside of the gate is really also where the magic happens. But before I discuss that, these are some of the main container shipping lines that call to and from the Port of Hueneme. We have Great White Fleet, which is affiliated with Chiquita. We have Maersk and Network Shipping, and Network Shipping supports a lot of the Del Monte banana volumes. And so again, these three carriers call on Hueneme a weekly service. They serve different countries in Central and Latin America. If there's opportunities to support U.S. exports, to backhaul to those markets, we're very open to supporting that for you. And as I alluded to earlier, while the port and our on-port terminal model is very unique, outside the gate, we would say is where the magic really happens. A lot of ports, oftentimes, all of these off-dock processing facilities are kind of centralized within the terminals, which can be a value, but sometimes, as we saw in the pandemic era, it can create bottlenecks and congestion. If you'd like to think of it as a decentralized model where the container shipping lines partner with some of these off-dock facilities to act as an extension of the port. So customers like Maersk will partner with Channel Islands Logistics to have their facility be their gate. So really what ends up happening is the cargo is getting discharged from Hueneme, and it's spending, less than 24 hours at the port before it's getting on wheel chassis operated out of the gate to the off dock processing facilities, where, as you'll see to the right of some of those yellow boxes, you'll see they're bonded. And so customs can go and clear the cargo at their facility rather than having to do that on port. So it's a very unique business model, and it supports our auto business and our fresh produce container business, and gives us that resilience that really has driven some of the growth for us in the past couple years. And we'd also be remiss to not mention that the port under the Oxnard Harbor District also own a 13-mile short line rail. It's currently being operated by Genesee and Wyoming, and it connects to the Greater Union Pacific line located in downtown Oxnard. So there is the capability to support rail business as well from the port. And we offer that as an opportunity as well for partners, customers that would be interested in that. And I'm going to quickly just highlight some of the strengthening and the resilience that we've integrated and kind of examples, case studies, if you will. And one of them is going back to the COVID congestion era. So as we remember very well, consumer demand for goods was at an all-time high, and we were seeing large influxes of volume flood not just the West Coast United States, but the Gulf and East Coast as well. And so we were seeing a lot of kind of congestion through to choke points throughout the supply chains. And whereas our unique business model allowed us to distribute some of the congestion that we would have seen centralized on our port, we were able to get cargo in and out in a very timely manner that the customers appreciated. And so because of that, we were reached out to by some of the partners you see on this slide above, FedEx, JB Hunt, UCM, Sunkist, and Swire, about creating a unique chartered service that would go from Port Human, China, that would call the port of Hueneme to get some of FedEx's cargo away from the congestion in other parts of US ports and quicker to market. And so we were able to come up quickly with our governance structure. We were able to hold kind of special board meetings to consider agreements to partner and support this project. We were able to cut the transit time by 15 to 20 days or more with all of the COVID congestion at other ports to streamline from China to Hueneme. Normally, this isn't a trade lane that the Port of Hueneme serves weekly, but we were able to adapt and be agile with the partners who were looking for that agility and flexibility and find a solution that worked for them in Hueneme. And it was a very successful project. A lot of that cargo was sticky. Since then, the trade lane from China to Hueneme is not in service, but it just highlights how we were able to be flexible and provide agility for these customers through Hueneme in creative ways. In addition to the COVID pandemic, we've also seen value in the Port of Hueneme as the grantee of Foreign Trade Zone 205, supporting some of the tariff disruptions that have been common in news cycles over the past 2 years. And so the Port of Hueneme is the grantee, just like our fellow ports on the call today. These zones typically are within 90 minutes or 60 miles of a port. And depending on if you're within the boundary of Ventura County or outside of it, a site framework will be adjusted based on where your business is. But for those that are in Ventura County, we like to promote that we have this tool to support our region, manufacturing, warehousing, to support that business community during these uncertain times. And so currently, we have a few active FTZ businesses in our area. Some are in process, going through the Foreign Trade Zone Board and CBP approval processes. But it's a tool that we've been highlighting and seeing value in supporting our resilience for our local business ecosystem. And how we plan to continue to integrate resiliency and agility into our supply chain. We have close to almost $200 million queued up for improvements on our terminal to support our container and auto businesses. We're looking at engineering of a parking structure on port to add new capacity for our auto business, investments in new gantry cranes, more reefer plugs to create more capacity on port in order to get that speed to market that our customers value. And what we do inside the port, we also communicate with our outside the gate partners to ensure that their investments are also matching to make sure the rest of the supply chain can handle the volume surges as we forecast them to be. And here in Wainimi, we're also investing in a zero emission future. And so we also have a 2030 goal in order to be zero emission, but weather some of the fluctuations we've seen in the weather over the past few years, temperature surges. There's been a lot of fires in our area, and we've even had some flooding on the port that's damaged some of our infrastructure. So, planning for that future, investing in infrastructure that can be resilient to different weather scenarios is critical as well for us. And, our customers also value some of that zero emission technology, but there's certain Air Resource Board requirements for ro-ro vessels, and we can provide a solution for them to be compliant while the infrastructure projects are being developed. And one of the last things I think we wanted to highlight is when we think about resiliency in our supply chain, we don't want to forget that there's a human factor in everything that is global trade logistics. Everybody on this call relies on partners across the supply chain to move their cargo. And we are investing in a campaign that focuses on building out a workforce development pipeline that invests in local employment opportunities to support our commercial business partners. How do we get folks trained up and specialized in logistics? We partnered with our local community college districts to start offering classes where our business partners are actively actually participating in the curriculum and the certifications that they would like to see their employees have to support their cargo. So when we think about resiliency, when we think about it from a commercial business perspective, infrastructure, environmental perspective, we can't forget that there's also a workforce development component there. And so with that, that's a little bit about who we are, what we do, and how we do it. We're happy to answer any questions at the end of this presentation or down the line. But thank you very much, and I'll pass it back to you, David. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Drew. I really appreciate that. Extremely detailed, a lot of information. I definitely learned something from your presentation. And so without further ado, everyone, I'm going to quickly go into introducing the Port of Long Beach. And then after both presentations, we'll definitely open it up for Q&A. And so without further ado, Michelle Nijin is the manager of the business development at the Port of Long Beach, where she promotes and administers the port's foreign trade zone program, builds strategic partnerships to facilitate trade, and oversees the Port of Long Beach Tariff number 4, special events, and the division's administrative functions. Michelle attended Cal State Dominguez Hills, where she earned her Bachelor's of Science in Public Administration with a concentration in Public Financial Management. She also holds a Master's of Public Administration from Cal State Long Beach and is a certified port executive with additional certifications in digital marketing, global logistics specialist, and project management. Thank you very much, Michelle, for joining us today, and we look forward to hearing all of the great things about the Port of Long Beach as well.
All right. Thank you, David. Thank you, everyone, for having me here. I'm going to share my screen. I don't use Zoom normally. I usually use MS Teams. So let me know if you see my screen.
Yes, we can see it.
Okay,
Looks
perfect. Great. All right. Oh yes, and great job, Drew. I really learned a lot about Port of Wainimi and all of the initiatives you have going on over there. All right, so I'm going to give you guys a quick Port of Long Beach update to let you know what's going on. Our initiative this year is 2050. It's fast forward, and what we're trying to do is we want to double our cargo volume by 2050 here in the San Pedro Bay ports. So 50 million TEUs by 2050. All right, first of all, we bring in $300 billion in trade annually. Port of Long Beach is a premier gateway for trans-Pacific trade, and we are voted the best West Coast seaport in North America by Asia Cargo News for 7 years. We are also one of 18 commercial strategic seaports in the nation. Okay, here is our TE volumes over the last couple of years, 2021 through 2025. 2025 was we ended with 9.9 million TEUs, best record ever, and with no congestion. Here are snapshots of our cargo volume between 2023 and 2025. Again, record-breaking 9.9 million TEUs in 2025. Of that, more than 1 million TEUs at 5 of our 6 container terminals, and then we had more than 2 million TEUs at 2 container terminals. Our import volume was 4.8 million TEUs, and export is 1.1 million TEUs. So here are our top imports, containerized TEUs, furniture, machinery, electronics, plastics, and apparel. And our top exports are oil seeds, waste paper, food industry, residue, iron, steel, and cotton. This graph basically puts all of the import exports and empties together. This was our cargo volumes in 2025. And this is a snapshot between 2019 and 2025. What I like to show about this is 2019 was pre-pandemic, so that was our normal, right? And through 2021 through 2024 is our basically us kind of normalizing. 2025, I feel like there was definitely a lot of front loading last year. And this year we're starting to level down a little bit more. Port of Long Beach actually we were the #1 container port for the month of March, and we had a great Q1 of 2026. So we're headed towards 2050. Port of Long Beach we are connected to major US rail hubs, going to Chicago, Columbus, Kansas City, Dallas, Memphis, and Atlanta. And our value proposition is we are the most direct port between Asia and most of America, 22 days if you go through our port, as opposed to going around through the Panama Canal to go to Columbus. So one of our biggest initiatives this last year is what you may have heard as Supply Chain Information Highway. It was partially funded by the GoBiz grant and has been renamed this year to CargoNav. And one of the big things that we have with CargoNav right now is we are working on the Universal Trucking Appointment System. This is a joint project with Port of Los Angeles, and the idea is if you're a trucker right now, current status is you make appointments at each of the terminals. So with what we call UTOS, Universal Trucking Appointment System, it's going to be a module in CargoNav. You can go into CargoNav, log in, and make an appointment at any of the terminals, either LA side or Long Beach side. And here are our CargoNav partners. All right, Green Port Policy. It was adopted in 2005. So in 2025, we celebrated 20 years of leading green. We protect the community. The community distinguishes us as a global leader. We promote sustainability, employ best technology, and engage and educate the community. I started in 2006, so it's been amazing just watching how much Port of Long Beach has grown and seeing so much has changed since the adoption of the Green Port Policy. Part of the Green Port Policy is the Clean Air Action Plan. So we updated this in 2017, and some of our goals are, this is jointly with Port of Los Angeles, is a zero emissions truck fleet. We want to adopt intelligent efficiency systems, deploy zero emissions yard equipment, and expand on-dock rail. We want to increase this to 50%. We're currently at about 20%. And we also want to reduce greenhouse gases by 2030. So we're on board with you, Port of Hueneme, and 80% by 2050. Here is a photo of a Joule. It's a battery electric locomotive. by PHL. So PHL was is our short line rail provider. Part of our cleaner action plan is encouraging cleaner ships. How do we do this? We have our Green Ship Incentive Program where we provide incentives to operators that use the cleanest vessels to call the port, tier 2 or tier 3 engines. We also have a plus up. So potentially if you have a tier 3 vessel engine, you could get $9,000 per vessel call as an incentive from us. We also have our Green Flag Vessel Speed Reduction Program. This results in a reduction in dockage for you. So it's 15 or 25%, depending on how many of your fleet slow down. And how does this help provide clean air to the region? Well, when the vessels slow down, it's less emissions to the surrounding communities because you're slowing down once you reach the San Pedro Bay at Point Furman. We are also working on green shipping corridors with Shanghai and Singapore. With this, we are hoping to track reduction of emissions when you use this green shipping corridor. So we're still in the beginning process of this and basically outlining what the program looks like. So still work in process. We did renew our memorandum of understanding with Port of Singapore 2 weeks ago. And this is the one that was signed a couple of years ago. I don't have the new picture yet. So this shows a snapshot of our goals by 2030 and 2050. And this is in comparison to 2005 baseline, which is when we adopted the Greenport policy. We have $635 million in funding for zero emission projects. And here are some photos of some zero emissions cargo handling equipment. Long Beach Container Terminal is our automated terminal. It's the red, white, and blue cranes that you see. This is the LBCT LEED gold buildings. And if you've been to our office, this is our port building, downtown Long Beach. Here are results of our harbor biological survey. And actually, at our last board meeting, we just released our 2023 results. So I'm going to have to update this. Capital projects. We have $3.1 billion set aside for capital projects. Why capital projects? Increase terminal capacity, increase rail capacity, improve operational efficiency, and implement zero emission infrastructure. So here are some of the projects that we have going on. The on-dock rail project, which is with Pier B rail support. For every train, you're replacing 750 truck trips and freeing up the 710 freeway. If you've ever been on the 710. Here's a little bit more detail on the Pier B project. And this is going to help us move to 50% of our import cargo being on dock rail. Another project that we're working on that's beneficial is the channel deepening project. So right now, our main channel is 76 depth. So with this, it'll deepen to 80 feet. We'll also be deepening where Pier J is over to the right. So then they'd be able to support larger vessels. And then we're also deepening the Pier T basin, which is that yellow area. We have state-of-the-art fire safety and security. So here is our Fire Station 15 and our fireboat vigilance. Has anyone driven down Long Beach International Gateway Bridge? It's great. It doesn't shake. And I'm afraid of heights, and I can handle this. It's beautiful at night. And also we're able to support larger vessels because before the larger vessels couldn't go under the previous bridge. So here's a clearance comparing old bridge with the new bridge. Another project is the Barstow International Gateway Project. This is a gateway complex that BNSF is working on, and our PRB rail yard will help support this, move cargo that way, and also increase our on-dock rail. So here's a little bit of an overview of what the BNSF big project is. And that pretty much concludes my presentation. And our goal is, again, 2050, 50 million TEUs by 2050, and fast forward. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you very much, Michelle. I really appreciate that. Again, a lot of very valuable information.
How do I stop sharing? Oh, sorry.
There you go.
Sorry, MS Teams person. Thank you, guys.
And so maybe just to now take the opportunity to open it up to questions. If you could please raise your hand or put the question in the chat box. I'm more than happy to ask your question, or definitely turn on your mics and ask away, you guys. Again, we have two really important ports to California that I think this is a great opportunity to ask any questions you have and to get their insight with the current logistics environment we have today.
I have a question, and it's to both Michelle and Drew. How does an exporter or shipper in another country, other than, you know, really clear logistics, you know, somebody from Asia is going to ship to California. That's the most direct. How do they decide, if everything else is equal, if they're going to ship to Port Hueneme or to Port of Long Beach or Port of LA? Like, the further away you get, the more similar they get in terms of distance and location. So what are some of the more determining factors?
I'll jump in, and then Michelle, I'm happy to pass it over to. I think there's a couple different factors, right? Just depending on um, primarily first is the commodities that the shipper themselves is looking to transport. Each port kind of has their specialty, and you know it's hard for shippers to know what the specialty is. At each port, but in hopes of having conversations like this that the Global Chamber put on, where us ports get to be able to showcase kind of what our capabilities and what our specialties are very helpful. And then I think the other component of that too is, shippers are going to have their relationships with carriers and who they prefer. And sometimes where those carriers call impact kind of which port is their connection hub from Asia to Long Beach or LA, Oakland, or Wainimi, right? So I think there's a lot of factors that go into it, and then of course it's just trying to get the word out about what's available at each port. So that's done through conferences. I know I've seen Michelle at a couple different ones where we're just trying to promote, our services as a port and kind of the specialties that we provide. So it's a multi-pronged approach. I hope that answers it a little bit, Anita.
Yeah, thanks.
And to add to what Drew said, yeah, I think a lot of it is with the BCOs and your relationship. Are you going to have a direct contract with your ocean carrier? Are you going to use NVOCC? Because that kind of determines which vessel strings, because they have vessel strings that go, from the origin port to our port, either Port of Hueneme, Port of Long Beach, Port of Los Angeles. And then we actually have regular vessel services that go that are for each ocean carrier too. So I think that those are a couple of different factors.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Elizabeth, do you have your hand up?
I have one, and thank you. It's for Drew. Drew, I noticed that vessels come in from Ensenada, and I'm curious, what products come in, and are those vessels that are also coming in from Asia calling first to Ensenada and then coming to Port Hueneme?
Yeah, what's interesting on that Port of Ensenada sister port relationship, it was less on kind of the trade that we currently have set up, and it was more of the profile of ports that we are, Ensenada and Hueneme, are very similar. And so the sister port agreement there was more of sharing best practices on how we as the Port of Hueneme have leveraged kind of a similar profile as Ensenada. While we might do different cargoes, that arrangement was more so on sharing best practices and kind of working together to kind of get them to learn a little bit about our port and how we're leveraging our unique model as a driver for growth.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I have a quick question. If
Yes.
yeah, I noticed it on the your importer list. You had Guatemala listed as number one for, I think, TEU. I was just considering. I was just curious to know what the majority of their imports are, other than coffee, or if coffee
Bananas,
is the number one.
bananas.
Oh, okay.
So bananas, both Chiquita and Del Monte have major farming operations in Guatemala, and so a lot of the bananas that you'll see at the grocery store, you look at the sticker, it's either going to say Guatemala, Costa Rica, Ecuador, but Guatemala's a big banana producing region.
Thanks so much.
No problem. Thank you for the question.
Maybe one other question I have for you, Drew, is I know automobiles and bananas are the large volume of imports, but what other commodities has the Port Hueneme seen beyond those two
Mhm.
commodities?
Yeah, that's a great question. So a lot of it is in the fresh produce space. So we've been seeing a lot of blueberries actually surging in volume from Latin America coming in through Hueneme. On the ro-ro side, we're also seeing a lot of high and heavy equipment. So a lot of these ro-ro vessels are unique in that their trade lanes aren't always set and fixed. They're basically calling on ports where they're a scheduled cargo pickup is designated. So we see a lot of John Deere, Caterpillar, a lot of heavy equipment growth coming through Hueneme that comes on the ro-ro vessels, which predominantly are transporting autos. But on the produce side, we're seeing a lot of growth in blueberries coming into Hueneme, and then on the ro-ro side, a lot of the high and heavy equipment we're seeing growth in as well. And on the export side, we see a lot of there's some California grapes that go to Latin America, potatoes grown in California go to Latin America, and then they're processed into chips or French fries over there. So we're seeing growth in those exports as well. That's a good question. Thank you,
Great.
David.
Thank you. Any other questions?
I have just an observation. I noticed that the ratio between imports and exports, we really need to kick up the exports. What are the ports doing to help either educate or share that you have available resources for export? I guess Drew first and then or Michelle first and then Drew.
Okay, so for Port of Long Beach site, we're very active, attending a lot of the exporter events, and we are working on workshops where we're touching on each of the different sections, imports, exports, different parts of the operations like FTZ, terminal operations, and trying to educate and facilitate trade and grow exports.
Yeah, and I think adding to Michelle's comment there as well, I mean, for us on the Port Authority side, it's working closely with our carriers and trying to understand how we can, co-market the opportunities through Hueneme for exporters. A lot of it is also us going out to the business communities, whether it's the Global
Mhm.
Chamber, going to conferences, and trying to find who are the U.S. exporters that are looking to go to markets that we currently serve on a weekly basis. Really, a lot of it is this outreach, and a lot of it is kind of going to where the potential businesses are and letting them know, hey, there's a service available here. If you or your business network see value in the current trade lanes we serve, reach out, and then we'll help connect you to the appropriate partners to kind of do that next due diligence step in getting to that market.
Thank you both. And I suspect the increased imports was the comment that was to offset the tariff impacts. But still, we need to increase our
Mhm.
exports. Thank
Yeah.
you.
Maybe one last question that I have for you, Michelle, is with the lofty numbers of increasing capacity in 2050. I know that there's a lot of infrastructure improvements with rail, innovation, and efficiency. But from a land perspective, does the Port of Long Beach have additional land to grow to accommodate some of that capacity? Or is those rail innovations or improvements supposed to accommodate that?
We actually do have, we're working on some land capacity. So Pure S is going to be an e-commerce terminal for us. And then also there is another, I don't have the map up, but if you're familiar with ITS, we are working on a slip fill. So once we fill that, we'll be able to have two large vessels side by side.
Great, great. Thank you very much. Again, a special thanks to both speakers for taking the time and sharing some great information about each of your ports. It definitely adds value to our members on how they navigate their supply chains here in Southern California. And then just a special mention to everybody, June 24th is our next part to this series. The two ports that we will be introducing is the Port of Los Angeles and the Port of Oakland. So look forward to seeing those promotions go out here in the next couple of weeks as we finalize our speakers. But we're excited to learn more about those two ports next. And then our third part to the series will be introducing cross-border activity with Mexico and Otay Mesa in California, as well as the seaport of San Diego, which has some cool things happening there as well. So look forward to seeing that last part probably in September, October. So we'll see more to come there as well. But just to give everyone a heads up of what to expect, and we look forward to seeing you at those future events. And at that, I will hand it off to Doug to close us out.
Thank you, David. Great program. Not only did I learn how to pronounce Wainimi, but I've learned a lot about trade and resilience. And so thank you very much. Our next event, we have 1 to 7 events a day at Global Chamber around the world. And so the next one of significance on the trade side is Friday at 7 a.m. Pacific time. We have our monthly conversation about trade overall. And I think we have about 8 speakers lined up to talk about their perspective from all over the world. How is trade going? What are the opportunities? What are the challenges? And how do we navigate it? And in fact, the first speaker is a longtime member based, I believe, in Portugal, who has a solution for some of the Middle East challenges that are happening in the ports there. So Izzy Heiken is an amazing guy. He and his wife traveled around the world, and they've got some great logistic solutions. So check that out on Friday. And then for here in Los Angeles on the 21st of May, we have our monthly virtual call, and it's dedicated to USMCA. And so we'll be talking about part 2 of our conversation there of what's going to happen after July 1st. And then we have World Trade Month happening on the 28th of May. And so watch for that information. It's actually up on the website right now, but it's incomplete. And so we'll be building that out over the next several days and publicizing it quite heavily tomorrow, or Monday. World Trade Week for Southern California is happening this Friday. I think Elizabeth and Sarita know about that one. I'm less familiar with the Inland Empire one on Friday. I think maybe one or both of you are attending that. Definitely, I'm going to the one on the 7th of May with Bill Edwards and Southern California District Export Council. And David, I think you may be speaking, and I know, yes, Sarita, you have a panel there as well.
Absolutely. Yep, looking forward to that.
Yeah, the one on Friday is it's the 32nd annual World Trade Week for the Inland Empire, and it's going to be out in Bear Springs. There are 10 speakers, and it's a whopping less than $30.
It was like $28
28 something, yes.
Yes. I will see you there, Elizabeth.
I thought that was maybe some currency effect of something. It was I didn't know why that was the way it was, but it was definitely entertaining and made me chuckle. Michelle and Drew, both of you, just really great today. Any final comments, David, that you would like to make?
Just a special thank you to the Global Chamber and to all its members. And most importantly, a special thank you to our committee members for the Import-Export Committee with Anita and Elizabeth that are on today, and for the others that also contribute. Thanks again, everyone.
Thank you, everyone. This was very valuable. Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Everybody.
Everyone.
Bye.
Thank you. Have a great day.
Bye.